Welcome to the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Show, where our mission is to inspire, impact, and influence other immigrant entrepreneurs to follow their dreams and create the future they want and desire. My guest today is a hedonistic, opportunistic entrepreneur, Henry Woodman. Henry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ali. Happy to be here. Wow, say that hedonistic, opportunistic, immigrant entrepreneur. Say that 3 times fast. That's a lot of big words there.
Absolutely. Henry, when we were discussing or when we got to know each other, you told me I'm not an immigrant myself, although my what was the phrase you said?
My parents, my grandparents, we're all immigrants at some point, unless you're an American Indian.
Exactly. So tell me about yourself and our audience a little bit about yourself.
So, wow, we can...
Before giving it all away. Don't give it all away. I want to be able to ask you questions.
There's a lot. That's pretty broad. Tell me about yourself. Really...
where were you born? Where are you from? Where were you raised? And how were you raised? And all these things.
Got it. So I was born here in Miami, Florida, and I was raised traveling for the most part, first couple of years in Switzerland, and then I came back to Miami, Florida, went through junior high and high school here. Then I went to college in Arizona at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Then I moved to Los Angeles. Then I moved to Chile and Santiago. And then I moved back here to South Florida, where I've pretty much been ever since.
Awesome. And what did you do in Switzerland, by the way? That's where I'm from.
Yeah, my father was working for Pan American, which at the time owned Intercontinental Hotels. And this is the early 60s, my dad. And so we went there where he was working for Intercontinental, I think in Geneva. And so we had a place there for a couple of years.
Awesome.
And do I remember any of it? No, because I was under 5.
Okay, we're not giving away your age.
No, you don't have
people have to guess.
Age, you don't care anymore. You're like, whatever. It's you see the white hair, I've been around.
Right. But I have to say, man, you look, and even your energy is like, hey, you could be in your 30s.
I'm a couple of months from care, baby.
So, Henry, tell me about your professional life and how you got into entrepreneurship, and what was the beginning of Henry's professional life like?
Yeah, that's it's funny because I really don't look back and go, okay, this is the beginning, because entrepreneurship can start, when I started, I was 13 years old and I went to Mexico for a swimming meet. I came back with a switchblade and I was trying to impress my friends in junior high, and I'm pushing this little button and a blade would pop out, and they thought that was the coolest thing ever. I was a big man on campus at 13, of course. So they all wanted one. And of course, I fly back to Mexico. I buy a couple of boxes of small and large switchblades and I sell it, from $3 to $15 and from $4 to $18. So that was my first sort of, I wouldn't say entrepreneurship, but hey, there's an opportunity. I can, increase being the cool kid in school. So, I took advantage of it. And another example, as I'm now in college, I'm 19 years old. And at the time I had a pretty serious addiction to Pac-Man, right? I lived and breathed Pac-Man. I'm sitting in a laundromat. I have a pocket full of quarters and I want to play Pac-Man. And I'm thinking to myself, this place needs a Pac-Man. And so instead of wondering, well, somebody should do something, I go to my dorm room. I call every laundromat in Tucson. I said, you guys have video game machines? They all said no. And so eventually I said, would you like one? I'll share the revenue with you. And, they'd say yes. And I'm like, I don't know why I said that, because I didn't have any money. So I take my tuition money, I go to an auction, and I bought this really horrible machine that nobody wanted and they wanted to get rid of. And I put it in a laundromat. Now, keep in mind, these are people with a pocket full of quarters, with 2 hours and nowhere to go. So I have a captive audience, right? By the time I graduated, I had video game machines in many of the laundromats that I would just move around every couple of weeks because they were so bad that people would say, finally, they got a good machine. So that was sort of the second dive or dipping my toe into entrepreneurship. And it wasn't as, listen, I need to do something to make money and scale. I just was trying to satisfy my own hedonistic need to play, video games. And ironically, I couldn't play because every time I'd go, I didn't want to take away from my revenue.
Mm-hmm. So, Henry, when you say, I'm familiar with the term hedonistic because I have a mentor who describes himself as a hedonist. Can you tell our audience what that means and what it stands for?
Yeah, in at least for me, hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure. I do things that I enjoy, that I want to do, that make me happy, right? So, I wanted to play video games. That makes me happy, right? Then, next I wanted to get into the film and television business, but I wanted to produce and direct films. That didn't happen, but I also liked to travel. So I get into, working in travel films again, hedonistic pursuit, right? At that point, it wasn't about the money. It was just about, you're young and you want to see the world and you want to have a gig that's not sitting behind a desk for 9 to 5. And that fit the bill.
I see. So, and then what happened after that? When you got into building a bigger, let's say, company that you then eventually exited. What was that like and what was that about?
Yeah. It's kind of like Steve Jobs says, connecting the dots. It was a journey along the way. I go from college to LA. I'm looking for work. I don't know what to do. I spend my money partying like an idiot because I'm young and dumb. And then I end up on a travel crew doing documentaries and travel films. And eventually I'm producing travel films. And then Chile in Latin America went from a dictatorship with Pinochet to a democracy, and thus new television stations and a new television network opened up, right? Which screams opportunity. They needed content, right? So I fly down to Chile. I present myself as an American producer with the new TV network. I had packaged a game show for the younger demographic, and within a couple of months, we had a game show on the air. So that's leading to most of the things I've done were with others or with an established protocol, right? The travel film, somebody else was doing it. I was just producing or I was directing. I was taking care of it. The game show went through another production company in Chile. I was the executive producer. And most production stuff has a beginning, middle, and an end, right? You sell somebody a product, you pre-produce, produce, post-produce, give them the product, right? So while I'm in Chile, somebody hands me a CD-ROM and shows me this 360-degree virtual tour. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. You don't even have to go to this place and you can look all around. I loved it, right? So I set up another company now called World Travel Vision, because now I can travel the world producing content for destinations and hotels without 5 guys and 17 pieces of luggage, right? And so I'm now producing, and I moved back to the US, right? And I'm producing virtual tours. And I would give clients CD-ROMs that they would take to conferences and trade shows. This is somewhere in the mid-90s, right? So eventually, in a couple of years, the hotels would say, how do we put these virtual tours on this new World Wide Web thingy? I'm like, I don't know, send them a CD-ROM, right? That's what I would give them. And they'd say, yeah, they don't know what to do with it. There are no standards, right? So I said, well, let me see what we can do to help. So we go from producing virtual tours to now producing and distributing virtual tours to a select number of travel websites. And then we start to realize, okay, there's actually more money in the distribution because it's an ongoing payment as opposed to the production, which is a one-time payment. Okay, let's almost give away the production in order to get the distribution, right? So now we're producing virtual tours cheaply to get distribution, to get the ongoing revenue. And then we look into it further and realize, well, virtual tours are nice to have, but photos are need to have, and the systems that would give you the rate and the availability, well, they didn't have pictures, right? So there was some dysfunction, thus another opportunity presents itself. I had no idea. I thought I'd go to a website and dial up with, 28.8 or, 58K. And the pictures sometimes would say not available or no pictures exist. I didn't know there was a problem until I realized they never had pictures to begin with. These travel sites would set it up in a separate database. Anyway, make a long story short, I realized, okay, now here's another opportunity. And this is an ongoing business, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. I hear people tell me things like, you need to hire the best people. And I'm like, yeah, I can't even afford to pay myself. You want me to hire the best people? Yeah, you need a culture. I'm like, I don't know what that means. You need KPIs. I'm like, what's a KPI? I had no idea. Mm-hmm. So I go back to school and I get an MBA in entrepreneurship in order to learn this time, because when I went to college, I really wasn't serious about learning. It was about women and drinking and partying. And so I go back, I get my MBA, I read a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. It enlightens so that's what those things mean. Oh, so a vision. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it all came clear. And, it took 25 years, but we built the business. And now anytime you go to a travel website and you see pictures of hotels like the Hiltons and the Hyatts and the Wyndhams, those would come from my old company servers. Still do, for that matter. We sold it a couple of years ago.
Wow. Who did you sell it to?
I sold it to a multi-billion-dollar monster in China called Shiji. All of the point of sales were pretty much in China, were this company, and they were expanding internationally. Alibaba gave them $1 billion to go buy some companies, and we were one of them, fortunately.
I love it. When you're telling the story that you sold your company for 8 figures, it's like, yeah, we did that, and then we had coffee, and then we went for a walk, and then it was done.
Well, it's funny because you spend the first 10 years, at least I did. I don't know. I spent the first 10 years struggling, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I was paying myself barely enough to survive. It was less than minimum wage. And eventually things start to happen, right? And then eventually you get people take you seriously, you get contracts, and next thing you know, you just get the growth and the scale, right? Because we spent years listening to clients. What do you need? What do you want? What we can do, right? And then when a company came, and this was the strategic buyer, and we were in a good position. I was earning good money. I had no board. I had no boss. I had no debt. I was making good money. So I had a number on my mirror for a decade before that, because I knew what I needed to live the rest of my life comfortably. And so I said, I'm really not ready. I didn't think I was ready to sell because I didn't think I was going to get the number that I wanted. And finally, when I told them, what I was interested in and why, they finally said, fine, you got a deal. No investment banker. I didn't shop it around. I got my number and I was happy as a clam and got my coffee, as you said.
Right. So when you started building the company that you eventually sold for 8 figures, was that your ultimate goal? Hey, I'm going to build it and I'm going to sell it for that kind of money, although you had the number in mind? Or was it, hey, I'm going to solve this problem, I found an opportunity, and then let's see what happens next?
Yeah, it was a kind of a combination, because at the beginning was, yeah, I think I can solve this problem, kind of morphed into it because I didn't know it was a problem until I realized, oh, wow, this is a problem. Maybe we can do something about it, right? So eventually it was like, I think I can solve this problem and I can make a living at it, right? And then when it started gaining traction, then I put the number on the mirror, and I then decided that technology changes really quickly. And I don't think I know what's going to happen in a couple of years. So I figured if I get to that point where somebody offers me the number that I wanted, I'm gone, right? This is not a family business. I'm not going to pass it on to my daughter. So I knew early on. The number came really because my brother and I were talking and we said, how much money would we need for the rest of our lives to live comfortably. I mean, not buying yachts and jets and stuff, but to comfortably live and not have to worry about working again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And assuming it doesn't really make that much money, right? Like you're not making 15%, you're making maybe 2 or 3% on your money. Pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I doubled that number, because taxes and other dumb things. And that was the number.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Henry, at least to me, you appear very laid back and relaxed and calm and collected. Was it always like that, even during the phase that you were building these businesses and eventually your bigger company? Or is that a different Henry that we get to see today?
No, now I have time to wake up, walk the dogs, meditate, do some yoga, breath work, No, the answer is, let's be clear. And I'll give you an analogy. If I said, all right, Ali, if you don't know how to swim, watch these YouTube videos and read this book, and then I'm going to throw you in the deep end, and I just want you to read the treading water. Just do this, and you'll be fine, right? And I throw you in the deep end, and your arms are flailing, and you mentally and physically think, oh my God, I'm going to die, right? It's the same thing with business in the sense that you don't just read a book, let's say school and education, and they say, okay, now you know exactly the principles. Go in and knock it out of the park, baby. You get in there and you're like, oh yeah, so yeah, that's what culture means, and that's why it doesn't work when KPIs gives you a health barometer. Okay. You have to understand and be part of that growth in order to see how to scale, right? So early on, I was probably stressed out about everything. We're not making bills. I got a second mortgage on my house to pay my employees. And if this doesn't work, I'll be asking you if you want fries with that burger. I didn't have a plan B. So yeah, I was under a lot of stress thinking, you know what, this is very, now it's my life. Because earlier in my youth, there wasn't far to fall. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a family. So what? I sleep on a friend's couch. I'm pretty cool with that. But as you get older and you have a family and you have a house and you have a mortgage, you have cars and you have employees that depend on you, it's a different stress and it's far more impactful. So I think that, you get impatient because you're stressed out. And one of the things that I think is really important is to try as hard as you can to do the 3 things to maintain your health. Sleep well, hard to do when you're thinking about shit all night long. Eat well. Okay, that means bring healthy food to the office instead of going out and getting junk food or ultra processed food. And move, exercise. I used to try to take the middle of my workday and go swim just to clear my head and to get blood flow through my body and work out.
I see.
So that's the long answer to say I wasn't always a calm, relaxed person.
Okay, thank you. So, when you have a life like you have, you're in a good place. You're not worried. You don't have to be worried. Your family doesn't have to be worried. Now, what comes next? Are you spending the rest of your life on a golf course and traveling the world and meditating and doing breath work? Or do you have plans to do something next?
Right. Well, on my LinkedIn profile, it does say shitty golfer, so I'm not spending a lot of time on golf courses. But the truth of the matter is, and people who tell me, the business owners, or anybody really, I can't wait to retire and do nothing. I'm like, okay, if you're an entrepreneur, that doesn't exist because your brain can't sit there for more than a week or two until you go, all right, what now? Right? I don't know what I would do if I didn't have something lined up previous to selling. 40 years ago, when I moved to Los Angeles thinking I was going to produce and direct movies, I bought the rights to a book. And since then, it's been 4 decades now, I've been thinking about producing this it was a movie, but now it's a TV series. So I just published the book, and now my attention and my focus is on developing this concept into a TV series. And that's for 2 reasons. 1, it's a passion project. 2, I don't think if I knew then what I know now, I would have gotten into the industry, because it's not a lot of, it's that 1%, like any of the artists,
Mm.
whether it's actors or musicians, that are actually making enough to earn a living, right?
Mm.
So now it's a passion project. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. It's something I have the time and the ability to do. And so I travel with my wife. I coach small businesses. I'm on a couple of boards, and I'm developing this, published this book and developing this series.
Okay, tell us more about it, please.
So the book, it's called The Reincarnation of Marie. And the interesting part is it was written by my father. Now,
Oh,
my
wow.
father was an archaeology travel geek, right? And when I was in LA, my sister's helping him move, and there's this manuscript sitting in the garage, and she asks him about it. And he says, well, I really wrote this tribute to a friend. And she says, yeah, what's it about? He says, it's a love story. Love story? Dad, right? Come on. She reads it. She loves it. She calls me up and she says, you've got to read this story. Dad wrote it. It's unbelievable. I'm like, Dad, love story? Come on, that does not compute, right? I read it. I could not put it down. I was in tears. I called my dad. He says, I wasn't planning on doing anything with it. I said, can I buy the rights? And he said, sure. So a friend of mine is out there producing a movie, and I call him up. I said, you got to read this because it's my dad, and I think how nepotistic of me, thinking it's good. He says, Henry, I'm in the middle of something. Can I do it when I'm done? I'm like, sure. 3 days later, he calls me up and he says, I could not put it down. I love this. We are meant to do this. I said, yeah, let's do it. Thinking that was going to be the first start for the career. Well, he has a bad deal with his distribution of his film. I end up going to Chile to produce game shows. I said, one of these days we're going to do this, right? Then I come back to the US. I start my tech company. Here we are 25 years later, and I call him up. I said, okay, Doug, I'm ready. Let's do this. Now, he went into real estate and develops real estate. So now he's written the pilot. Now we're putting together what's called the pitch deck. The book is called The Reincarnation of Marie. It is based on historical fiction. This woman, Marie, actually existed. She, in the late 1800s, wrote a journal between 14 and 24. She died at 24. 2 years after her death, her mom publishes the journal, and it becomes an international bestseller because it writes about all kinds of things that women at the time didn't even talk about, much less write about, sexuality and masturbation. And she would write these things. 70 years later, this guy finds the book, falls in love with the author. And he believes, because she writes about reincarnation and how she will find him in time, he thinks she's writing to him. And he then finds her reincarnation. That's the simplistic version of, guy finds soulmate died 17 years ago, and then he finds her reincarnated. Wow. And the series, which is now working title called Slippin', is a much deeper dive into the concept of slipping through time, whether it's karma or reincarnation or the metaverse, but what's going on out there, right? And do we see and find our soulmate in every lifetime? No, I don't think so. And if we do we have karma to work out? There's the two sides of the coin, love and hate. We explore those topics in this series.
Wow. Very, very interesting. So, and Henry, what does, obviously it's a huge undertaking, I can only imagine. And what is it that makes you go for it and, put your energy and time and money on a project like that?
Right. So the real thing is the time is there because, since I sold the business, there's a little bit extra time. And if I didn't, I think I would go crazy because I have the ADD entrepreneur syndrome where I have to do something. I can't just fade away and sit on the sofa and watch TV. I mean, that's nice for a little bit, but, so I need something to stimulate my brain and to give me a purpose and sort of a direction, like the vision, right? It is not an industry that I would recommend because there are multiple challenges. Obviously, the productions have gone down 40% year over year. I think AI is going to disrupt a lot of what happens in not just writing of TV and movies, but also text to video, right? It's getting good, and AI is going to disrupt it. It's going to get better. I think that the monies that were spent years ago was an arms race, and now they're looking at their bottom line and going, maybe if we do these things outside, or if we buy foreign stuff, we can get the content filled, but we don't need to spend as much money, right? Because it's expensive. And so I think there will be some changes. So those are challenges. And, I'm excited about it because I'm not in a rush. I don't expect, oh my God, by next month, we have to have this thing sold. I need the money.
Mhm.
No, if it's next month or 3 years from now, it doesn't matter. It's going to happen. And somehow, I've been waiting 40 years. What's another couple of months or years?
Right. But why do you do it? What's the driving force that keeps you going?
Yeah, it's a passion project. Ever since I was 16, the thought was, I want the creative part of putting this together. I'm always fascinated with the paranormal, if you will. I mean, is this all there is? Is there more to that? Is there such a thing as an afterlife, or are we just narcissistically deluding ourselves and we're just, born, live, die, and end of story, like an ant, right? And I think that's hard for people to imagine. So we want to give this conception of, yeah, there's a lot more out there, and there's this, soul continues on, and reincarnation and soulmates, or is it the metaverse, or things like that. So it is more than anything, Ali, I think it's a passion project. It's something that I just want to finish what I started 40 years ago.
Gotcha. What is Henry's opinion on what happens after life? I want your personal opinion.
Yeah, it's fluctuated through my life from, wow, I have to tell you, it's when I was like 7 or 8, I was just learning how to read, and there was a newspaper in my mom's bathroom, and it talked about a plane crash, and it mentioned some local names, and I would read it, and I'm like, whatever, right? Don't know them, don't care. Wait a second. What if that was my name? And somebody reads the paper and they go, look, Henry Woodman passed away in a plane. So what? And I'm thinking, that as an 8-year-old was the scariest thought, that you really have no significance, right? That your name is nothing to anybody. It's just print on a paper. I was scared shitless for nights, right? So from then I'm like, it's got this, this can't be it. It can't be so insignificant. So then I start believing in reincarnation, and I start believing in, okay, there's more to it. Maybe ancient astronauts, right? And as I get older and maybe more rational and pragmatic, then I come back and I go, was I thinking that because I'm afraid that this is all there is? What if this is all there is, right? And this is the long way of saying, I don't really have a strong feeling that there's more. I want to believe, because it seems shallow to say, well, this is all there is, and then you get close to end, and then you get religion, if you will, right? So I don't really have a strong opinion anyway. I think something is going on, because if there's all these things in the universe that we don't know, I think more is out there that we can't explain. We're trying to explain it, but I don't know how to explain it.
Gotcha. Have you had any psychedelic experiences?
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I did mushrooms in a concert in LA, and I don't know, when I was 20 something, I've done ayahuasca, but it didn't do much for me.
Oh, seriously?
So I didn't have this out of body sort of revelation, right? And I tell you, I think I'm too much of a control freak, where I sit there and I analyze during the event. Is this what's supposed to happen? Am I supposed to be feeling something? What's going on? Is this? And I start to ask myself these stupid questions while I'm in the midst of it.
Oh, wow.
And then instead of just letting it take me where it takes me,
Right.
I have to question it, right?
So does that mean you're still controlling the experience, and because you can't let go, you're not getting the full experience?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Interesting. Henry, what does your day-to-day look like?
Well, I talked to Ali on the podcast today. It's funny. I would get up, walk the dogs. I have a morning routine where I do a little bit of qigong, right, a form
Hmm.
of meditation in motion. Then I do some breath work, and then I do some reading of my emails. It's usually an hour and a half to 2 hours before I even pick up any phone or social media.
Hmm.
And I have a 10-minute meditation thing, and then I'll read stuff. Then I'll come take care of some business on my computer. I have some investments. I'm on some boards. I generally have a meeting or two, and I will go to work out, swim, or to the gym, or do something like that. Come home, finish up the meetings, feed the dogs, sit with my wife, and relax and watch something on TV.
Hmm.
That's an
Thank you.
average day.
Thank you. And when I'm listening to you, it's like for many people, you're in a spot that people dream of.
Yeah, yeah.
Like describing your day is like, hey, oh, that's amazing, man. That's the that for someone maybe who is a bit younger, it's like, oh, that's the ultimate dream that I have for myself and for my life. Um, is
I'm
it always?
incredibly lucky. I'm incredibly lucky. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I will say, especially for people that are looking at, this is what I want to do. It's like I didn't always know that I got lucky, in my opinion. But I also say that if you want to find opportunity, it's really a three-legged stool. Four, if you consider stress. But one, try not to stress so much. But be talented, right? You don't have to be the most incredibly smart person on the planet. Just have some talent, right? One. Two, prepare. Whatever you're doing, if there's a business and you're solving a problem, at least you're solving a problem, then prepare for all of the circumstances that are going forward to allow you to scale. And three, hope for luck, right? So opportunity comes by if you're prepared and lucky, a little bit of talent. If you're lucky and you're not prepared, you may not see opportunity. If you're prepared and you're not lucky, you may not see opportunity. So you want to maximize your chances to finding opportunity.
Awesome. I made 2 notes. So, because because a few weeks ago I made a post and I said, "Hey, talent beats passion." And then of course I would get some love and some hate, and people were like, "Oh, no, no, no." So, I truly believe that talent beats passion. Passion comes and goes, but talent is always here. And if you build on talent, then you get way better results than building on passion, or at least it has been in my life. Um, tell us about the talent side of things.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I look at it and I think that grit, right? Determination, discipline,
Hmm.
wash, rinse, repeat, do it again, wash, rinse, repeat, do it again. People with talent also have high expectations and they feel like they want things to happen sooner, whereas people with grit will keep fighting it out and scraping by until something does happen. I think talented people may give up sooner than gritty, disciplined people. It's my opinion,
Hmm.
right? So talent is relative. In other words, if I were born in Somalia as a black kid, I don't care how much talent I'd have. I think I'm limited by my environment, right?
Hmm.
And here I am, a white guy born in the United States in the 60s. I don't think I have that much talent. I'm just in the right place at the right time. And as Warren Buffett says, I won the ovarian lottery. So how to take advantage of that is really a little bit of mindset, grit and determination and taking advantage of opportunities. Not everything works out, but you say yes to everything until you find the one thing you can win at and try to build a moat or be better than everybody. And then you have to say no to everything. Because early on, you're just looking for the right thing. And, I like when people say, I'm solving this problem or I'm making this better than it was before. Great. That's what we want to see. I don't want to see another boutique clothing store or something, you know?
Mhm. And how much do you believe in, when we go through phases in life and also in professional life, just seeing it as stepping stones, okay, let me get to that place, to that spot, and then from there I'll figure out? Or is it like, hey, you had always the plan of building this 8-figure company and then selling it, and that's all you cared about, nothing else mattered?
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I'm a firm believer in the stepping stones, and how they get to that, how those opportunities find you, it depends on what stones you've stepped on, right?
Mhm.
If you would have told me I'm going to build a tech company and sell it for a couple of bucks, I would say, I don't even know what technology is. I don't even know how to write a line of code. There's no way I would have believed that
Mhm.
had I not produced visual content that then somebody I gave them a CD-ROM that then wanted it on this internet. Would I have known that this was a problem when then I hired people that knew how to write code? Because I certainly don't. And so I would surround myself with more accomplished people than myself. So that was the dot. I think the stepping stones, I mean, you always look at saying, I want to accomplish something for my own satisfaction, but how and where and when, I have no idea. I just, want to. And the stepping stones get you there. If you would have said, you were going to go and ultimately produce this TV series, I'm like, oh yeah, great. But before that, you got to build and sell a tech company. I'm like, what? How would that happen? Right?
Mhm.
Exactly. That's a stepping stone.
Mhm. Right. And then as you were talking about luck, I made a note, and I truly believe that one has to position themselves for luck. You know, if you want to be lucky or want to get lucky and then sit and hope and meditate all day under a tree, nothing gonna happen. But if you get
Right.
out there, do the work, surround yourself with the right people, talk to many people, and then get in the place that people get to see you, now your likelihood of becoming lucky or getting lucky is way higher. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. First of all, you make your luck, right? Luck
Right.
is a byproduct of right place, right time, but you need to position yourself for that right place, right time. And as I mentioned earlier, be prepared. Now, I'm a huge believer in the network. I have groups that I'm involved with, and my wife would say to me, "So, what is it with these groups? Why are you a member?" And I said, you know that saying that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with? And she'd say, yes. I'm like, that's why. And of course, she would look at me and she says, wow, are you bringing that average down? Right?
Mm.
She's trying to humble me out. But the truth of the matter is, the reality is, if I were hanging out with guys that would punch a clock, come home, sit on the couch, drink a beer, smoke a joint, then I too would probably do the same thing.
Mhm.
But other people that inspire and educate and motivate me want me to be a better person because they are my inspiration and motivation. So I think it's huge that you surround yourself with if you want to be that like-minded person. And that's
Mhm.
where that whole, how do you get lucky?
Mhm.
Connections, network, prepared people that say, oh, listen, hey, listen, I got an idea, or I think Fred can help you with this. Great.
Mhm. And one thing that people sometimes forget about is like they ask themselves, okay, if I get into a room that other people are way smarter or way financially more successful than I am, what can I contribute, if I want to give? There is always something that we either know or can do better than other people or know more about, whatever that is. I'm 100% confident
Yeah.
anybody can contribute no matter what it is. It's just a question of, do you want to give and then take, or give and then take, or is it all about sucking everything out of anyone and everyone?
Yeah, let's be clear. I mean, at the end of the day, all entrepreneurs, I believe, suffer from imposter syndrome.
Right.
You know, at the beginning, even now, and I'll give you an example. Many years ago, about 17, 18 years ago, a few years after I had started my company, I was invited to give a presentation to this group of local CEOs in South Florida. And around the room, there were all these MBA students that were auditing these meetings, right? And I'm standing up there, and it just struck me that I'm a total imposter. And I'm trying to tell these people something about running a business when I don't even know what the hell I'm doing, right? And so eventually it occurs to me that I should go back to school and get my MBA to really learn how to run the business, which is what I did, right? So now here we are 17 years later, and I'm the chairman of that board of CEOs in South Florida, right? So it's funny, I go from presenter to imposter syndrome to student who was sat around the room to then on the committee and then on the board and now as the chair. So I think everybody, and I mean everybody has something, but we all minimize our value thinking, these people are smarter than me. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing here. Oh my God, we all have something to give. It's just scary to put yourself out there and think people are going to laugh at you or people are going to look at you and look down. But the reality is even one moment of embarrassment is not going to make up for a lifetime of achievement. If you do, somebody's always going to want to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Henry, I've had so many conversations in a personal basis, but also on this podcast. And I truly enjoy every minute of the conversation we have had so far. And I could just go on, but I want to be respectful towards your time. And yeah, man, it's been a blessing to having you on the show. Before I let you go, I would ask you one final question. Is there any advice that you would give towards or to a aspiring entrepreneur or someone who is maybe in their early stages and are listening to you and are like, man, if I only could give Henry a call or send him an email, I would love to ask him, or I would love to get advice from him. What would that advice be from you to those people?
Yeah. I'm going to give you three things. The last one will be how you can find more information and reach out and contact me.
Awesome.
But the first one is your mind creates your life. I don't want to say, oh, if you believe it's all going to happen. No, but if you don't believe it's going to happen, it is not going to happen, right? So your mindset helps set you up for that success. That's the first thing. The second thing, every single person that has ever succeeded on the planet that has done it at the expense of their health looks back and says, I would give it all up to get my health, right? So do not, this is my biggest advice, do not sacrifice health for money or whatever you consider to be success, because what happens is you're working long hours, you're eating crappy food, you're not sleeping, you're not working out. 20 years later, you've made it and you're unhealthy and overweight and you've got heart issues and you're like, what the fuck, right? Sorry for the thing, but try to balance, forget the work-life balance, try to maintain everything in moderation, but good, healthy habits. That to me, don't end up succeeding and then feeling like my health has been the price I had to pay. That's a terrible price to pay, okay? The last is how to, the book I was talking about and myself and some contacts, I created a website called mariethestory.com, and it has information on me. My father who wrote the book, the Slip-In, the series, has a link to my LinkedIn page, which is the best way to reach me, Facebook and Instagram. So all of that is on mariethestory.com.
Perfect. And we will link you up in the show notes so people can go directly to your website. Henry, thanks again for coming on. And I can't wait to, we're both in Florida, perhaps meet you in person and continue our conversation.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ali.
Bye-bye.